Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is Brief Introduction from Kates-Boylston, where we talk to people about what they do and why they do it in a short conversation. This week, we are speaking with Michelle Minter, and she is the executive director of Greensprings Natural Cemetery Preserve, and we're going to go over everything she does and why she does it, as I mentioned. But before that, I want to remind you to please listen in to after the credits for a little bit more information. And I guess it's important to say the reason that we're having Michelle on is that Greenspring was one of the runners-up in this year's American Cemetery Excellence Awards. So we're going to talk about that as well. And of course, if you haven't picked up your copy of American Cemetery and Cremation for November, now's the time to do it to make sure you get all of these great profiles on all of these fantastic cemeteries. All right, let's get into it with Michelle. So first of all, I want to congratulate you for being acknowledged by American Cemetery and Cremation. This is one of our largest years for applicants. So, you beat out a lot of other cemeteries. And I want to talk about why eventually. But first, I want to talk about why you. So how did you come to work there? And how did you come to eventually nominate it?
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony. We're very excited that we are acknowledged. I came to Greensprings Natural Cemetery Preserve back in 2018. First, actually, I had come just on a walk with my daughter. We were doing this thing. We were just trying to go to local places that we'd never been to before. And we took this hike, and it was at a time when butterflies were everywhere. It was maybe like late July. That's the time at Greensprings where you can barely take a step without butterflies flitting up in front of you.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's beautiful. So I had this really good impression. But it was maybe the following year, 2018, when I was asked by the person that I worked with in a different context if I wanted to apply for a job that was open at Greensprings. And I said that I didn't because I had so much going on. I just didn't see how I could fit it in. But then like a week or two later, this same person who was serving as the treasurer on the board of Greensprings, she invited me to a burial where no one was attending. It was an unattended burial, but it was for a 7-month-old baby.
Oh.
The funeral director was there, and she had the baby swaddled in her own son's blanket. And board members were there. I didn't know anyone, though, except for this treasurer who's been my longtime friend. The experience was just incredibly moving. It was like we were making stone soup because no one seemed, I didn't know who was who, but it seemed that everyone brought their own humble offering to this event. But we had this shared desire to send this child off with as much love as possible so that whatever comes next, we'd done the best we could to support their transition to whatever comes next. And it was just so incredibly heartbreaking and beautiful and rewarding to be a part of. And so after that experience, I was like, wow, there's no way I can't fit this work into my life. And I've just been here ever since.
What attracted you to do the work? Was it the people connection? How much of the environmental aspect is important to you?
Okay, that actually teases out kind of the rest of the first question. So the reason why that I was probably really ripe for doing this sort of work was that I had just lost a baby in the perinatal stage. So I didn't have anyone to bury. I'm the mom of 2. So, luckily it didn't take away my chance entirely to have children, but it did end up becoming a partial hysterectomy. So I can't have kids anymore. So I was already grieving. And when I first started the job, I was there was so much to learn and so many opportunities to just hold a space. Well, really, it's like the nature preserve holds this wonderful space for people to bring their broken hearts. And it gave me that same opportunity to just be sad in a place that is so reassuring. There's something just about the cyclic quality of nature and the seasons, that it reassures you in this not so awful way that life keeps going. On some level, it hurts so much that life keeps going when you've lost something or someone so much, that it's like, I don't see how life can keep going. It seems like everything should actually stop. But there's something about nature and like the bravery of the first spring flowers and all sorts of different moments like that in nature that just offer this like balm to a broken heart. And so I think that that's what tipped me into taking the job and then continuously reassures me that I'm in the right place because it happens for me that way, but I see it happening for other people too, that you bring your broken heart there and it does something helpful for you.
And what was the learning curve for you like learning to be the executive director of a cemetery?
Well, I mean, I had some time because they certainly didn't appoint me to the executive director role all at once. In
Right.
fact, it was like part of this really big, wonderful transition of Greensprings going from this organization. We started in 2006. We were the very first green cemetery in New York State. We were the third in the country. And it really began on a shoestring budget with people who were well connected to the land trust, our local land trust, who
Mhm.
were really deeply committed environmentalists, but it didn't have a lot of money associated with it. And so when I came on, there was just one other staff person who had been handling so much all on her own and probably too much on her own. And so
Mhm.
when I came on, it was this opportunity to improve a lot of systems and confirm a lot of data. You know, there was some like boring but essential stuff that I was able to do, but I was just there at this spot when we were right at the edge of big growth because enough years had accumulated so that more and more people in our community were starting to realize that there's this amazing resource that's right in our own backyard. And of course, we've also got people from Pennsylvania and New Jersey
Mhm.
and New York City. You know, we've got the region kind of aware of us, but it just keeps growing. So in that same sort of place of growth, I was able to really get to know the organization from like its foundation. So it put me in a good position to be able to help us grow and stabilize and be ready for even more growth.
What was the toughest thing you learned? What was the toughest lesson you learned the hard way and the toughest lesson you
Oh,
learned the easy way, I think?
okay. Well, I'm just going to assume that a lot of your listeners are fellow cemetery operators.
Mhm.
And so they might appreciate this. Otherwise, it could be considered boring, but it was a really big lesson.
Everyone who listens is in the funeral business here, so
Okay, so
yeah.
they might really resonate with this. In our first iteration of the first meadow, and backing up, I should say, because it's entirely a nature preserve, we manage it all to support grassland birds and butterflies. And it's
Mhm.
a 130-acre nature preserve surrounded by 8,000 acres of forest land. And so mowing is a big part of what we do, but we time that to coincide with or to not interfere with bird nesting habitat or when like prime native flowers are blooming to provide nectar for pollinators. But anyway, it goes back to our pathways and mowing. When we first laid out West Meadow, our first burial area, we had these beautiful windy pathways. And I guess over the course of time, we realized that those pathways are so much more difficult than just straight corners. You know, all of our
Mhm.
sites are 15 by 15. So it can still feel like it's curvy, but actually, we really had to change an aesthetic that we really liked at first, but that just wasn't working in terms of just keeping things, just making it like simpler for the average for a new staff person, or maybe more importantly, for visitors to be able to find their loved ones.
Mhm.
So, maybe that's a little bit dull, but pathways were one of the
Oh,
very
yeah.
big lessons that we learned the hard way.
Well, because you want people to be able to come around and feel comfortable kind of walking around.
Yeah, and part of that comfort is really feeling like you know where you're going. So, and all of our pathways, they're not the type that you can drive on. So when people come to visit, you dress like you're going for a hike, and it's at one of the highest points in Tompkins County. So we get more weather. Like the weather's a little bit more extreme. So if it's a balmy day in town up at Greensprings, it might be quite windy.
Mhm.
But yeah, just setting it up to create the best outcomes for people visiting their loved ones. Uh, Getting the pathways right was one of those big things we had to figure out the hard way.
And how did you decide to submit yourself for American Cemetery Excellence Award this year?
Well, we're on your newsletter list, so we always get that. And we have, in the past couple of years, started this, I don't know if it's called a program so much, but it's like this concept of offering places for solace and comfort at Greensprings. Soon, 40% of our total total acreage is used for burial area. We're opening up a new one now, but it's not open yet.
Mhm.
But so that still leaves a lot of acres for hiking trails and stuff like that. But when I first actually came on, one of the first actions that I did was to create this place called the Remembrance Grove, which is this little locust woodlet that is not far from where that first burial of a 7-month-old took place. But it's particularly for people who've lost a child at any age, whether that's the perinatal stage or like your 35-year-old daughter who commits suicide. For any reason, it's this beautiful locust woodlet with 2 stone benches and this memorial cairn where people come and they bring a stone and set it on this ever building pile of rocks. And each one of those rocks represents a child that someone lost. So it's this place where you can go to be sad, but also where you can kind of affirm the truth that you're not holding this grief all by yourself, that there's a lot of other parents who are also suffering and full of sorrow for having lost their child. So we have that place. We also have a wind phone, which is this unconnected telephone that is, the first one happened in Japan in, I think, 2000, I want to say 10, but I'm not positive. But now they're all over the world. I mean, there's like a couple hundred in the United States, but it's a place where you can just go and sit and pick up a phone. It's like an old-fashioned phone and talk to your loved one, your dad, who, would be so proud of you for having, done whatever, or where you could say sorry. It's like this physical prop for sometimes taking care of business you didn't get to take care of, or just for saying hello. And so I guess the reason why I felt like we would be good candidates for recognition was because of those places for solace. Because I feel like a lot of cemeteries, we come sad, and we hope that the visitors come back. And I feel like becoming a place for solace is this added benefit that we can bring to people who are visiting us, because they are bringing that emotion, and grief is the type of thing that really doesn't have a lot of public space. And that's not good. That I don't think is healthy for us as a community. So just creating more spaces where grief is welcome. I think the cemeteries are natural places for it. And so that's what made me feel like I wanted to share that, and I thought that it might be something that would resonate with you guys and with other cemetery managers.
Excellent. And that is really all I have for you, unless you have something else for me. Is there something I should have asked and didn't, or something you thought you'd get the opportunity to say, but I didn't provide it?
No, actually, I feel like your questions teased out all the things that I hoped we would cover.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Tony. This was really fun.
Yeah, it's been cool since I've started covering the cemetery and funeral home space at the kind of, height of the rise of the green cemetery and green burial practices and natural cemeteries and conservation cemeteries. And it's just one of those other significant transitions that, when we look back at this 15-year period, I think we're going to see, pretty clearly how we got to where we end up. Brief Introduction by Kates-Boylston is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Please subscribe wherever you're listening now. And if you have any comments, or if you have any questions, or if you just want to see if my email is working, you can check in the show notes for a way to reach me for any reason you like. And that will do us for this time. See ya.